So your company bills itself as the first all-digital car company with the world's most sustainable vehicle. How do you differentiate yourself from Tesla and other EVs out there?
Well, I think you just said it. One thing is that we are aiming to build the world's most sustainable vehicles, but also to sell our vehicles through a all digital model. So we won't build any dealerships, no brick and mortar. We have created a very unique, flexible lease where you can lease our vehicle and give it back anytime, whether it's after a month, 2 months, a year, 2 years, whatever you want. So we are really sort of preparing for the consumer of the future. And finally, I think our vehicles you can see our vehicles are more affordable than any of our premium competitors. And that's really due to our unique business model, where we share parts and where we outsource manufacturing. And finally, we have a unique development process that lowers the cost of the vehicles.
So let's talk about that business model, because as you say, you're not reinventing the wheel, you're not building from scratch, you're building through partnerships. You did just tell investors that you're in talks with Volkswagen to use some of their technology, their parts. But what happens if you don't secure that deal or any deal to get the core parts that you need to make this happen?
Well, today, every car maker needs to go out and buy things from suppliers. Nobody makes their own battery cells. Even Tesla's using Panasonic battery cells that they're licensing. So they didn't invent those. I think we're getting to a point in the electrification where it's not about trying to invent something new that's at a huge risk. It's really about getting the pricing of what we have down so we can be competitive with gasoline vehicles and we can make profit margins on the vehicles. Until people are offered an electric vehicle that's comparable to a gasoline vehicle, they're not going to buy it in bulk. So we are the first ones, I think, to actually being able to offer an electric vehicle that is better priced than a similar gasoline vehicle. Our, Fisker Ocean is priced below a Toyota RAV4. And that's, I think, a really good price for a premium SUV with emotional design that people are excited about. So we are inventing quite a lot of things in the vehicle, but not necessarily things that we think are commodities. I don't think anybody cares who makes your electric motor, your battery cells. I think people care about design. They care about the user interface. They care about how we treat them as customers. I think they care about unique, exciting features like our California mode where all the windows roll down. So there's a lot of unique things you're still creating, including all the software in the vehicle we are developing ourselves.
Now, Tesla has promised an affordable electric car for years, but even the Model 3 at $37,000, that is still out of range for a lot of people. And yet they've been making cars, they've been at this for years. What makes you so confident that you can actually deliver this by 2022?
Well, that's because we are using partners. We have, and specifically, obviously, if we make it on the VW MEB platform, that means we have an extremely reliable platform that we are competitive with because it's going to be made in the millions, which nobody makes electric vehicles in the millions right now. So I think that's the first thing where we get low pricing. And then we spend the money on, design and the quality materials in the interior. And we also don't spend money on setting up our own dealerships, or building a factory for billions of dollars. We are kind of the Uber of the automotive industry. We do everything digitally, and it just saves a ton of money and gets people an affordable vehicle, even though it's a premium luxury vehicle.
Okay, so on that note, you did just announce plans to go public through a special purpose acquisition, which is the same route that Nikola took, and certainly timely given the surge that we've been seeing in Tesla shares. You raised more than $1 billion in the reverse merger, but if you're not building the cars from scratch and you are relying on these partnerships, why do you need $1 billion? What will you use that money for?
Well, you still need to, tool up for all the parts that we're doing, all of the exterior, all the lamps, everything. We're also doing all the interior of the vehicle. So you've got to tool up for all that. That's hundreds of millions of dollars. So we own all the tools in the factory. We also have to build out our digital app, which we are building out right now. And of course, we are setting up experience centers, both in US and Europe. We're opening the first experience center here in Los Angeles. That also means investments. So, there's a lot of areas we do have to spend money into still developing a car. So even though you have the base skateboard platform, that's only 20% of a vehicle, but it's the most difficult of the vehicle is actually the skateboard with the crash structure. But it's also a commodity. If you can get the best of the best for the lowest price, why wouldn't you use it? It's already done in other industries, whether it's with computers where you use similar chips in different computers, or whether it's the television industry where you're using the same television, screens between different brands, and that's the only way you're going to get costs down.
Now, speaking about the numbers, you've said you'll secure double-digit margins and positive cash flow on the Ocean electric SUV that you're developing within 12 months of production. You've got a company like Tesla, which has been chasing profitability for years, very inconsistently. How are you going to do that?
Well, that's because we have taken a completely different approach. We're not a vertical integrated company, with all the overhead that goes with that. We didn't build our own dealerships with all the overhead that goes with that. So that's really why the investors, I think, are attracted to our business model, because it's really a business model that's set up to make money and much more and much higher profit margins that's seen before in the car industry. And you can really only do that if you turn this business model upside down. We have moved away from this traditional car industry business model that's been sort of going around for 100 years, and we are moving into the future, and that's why we are creating a digital car company. We don't need all this overhead. We don't need all the waste. We don't need all the middlemen. And we have seen here through COVID-19, you don't even need dealerships. You can ship cars directly to customers, and all this saves a lot of money, which means better profit margins for us and actually means lower prices for the consumer.
Now, you also know how hard this is, and you've been at it a long time. Your last electric vehicle startup didn't work out. There were some lawsuits. What do you say to investors to convince them that this time really is going to be different?
Well, we take all the lessons learned. That's clear. And I can see a lot of the other EV startups obviously don't have those lessons learned, but we do. So we decided, therefore, to do this joint procurement of parts, specifically parts which are common parts that you don't really, is not a differentiator on the vehicle. They are high quality parts that experienced OEM like Volkswagen have already done. They know what they're doing. They make the highest quality parts in the world. I don't think anybody would ask why we didn't make our own air condition. If Volkswagen makes the best air condition in the world, why wouldn't we use it? It's done high volume for great pricing. Secondly, manufacturing a car is extremely difficult, and we can see that Tesla has gone through, as they call it themselves, production hell, something we don't want to go through with our investors. We don't want to have them pay billions for it neither. So we are therefore going into a plant with a very educated, talented production team, which have already built vehicles. We have a plant that's already equipped. Of course, we have to put our tools in there, and that's the investment, but we don't take the manufacturing risk.
Right.
And that is the big difference here.
Now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, Henrik, and there's so many questions. We're working from home. People aren't commuting to work. What's your outlook on the future of transportation? Are people really going to be buying cars anymore? Talk to me about private car ownership versus ride sharing versus scooters.
Well, first of all, I do think people still like the private car. The question is, are they going to be buying it? Do they really need to own it? I think we see lease on the uprise, but the negative about the lease is you need to keep it for 3 years. So I actually think our flexible lease, where you can lease the car, give it back anytime. We're also planning a car swapping, potentially even green ride hailing through this app that we have created and we launched last year. So clearly people want a different interaction with their vehicle. I also don't think people feel like driving to the service place, the dealer, and get the car serviced. We're going to pick it up at home, do it. We're going to deliver the car at home. All this in COVID-19 have kind of learned us that we can do a lot more online over an app. So I think that'll change, but I still think people want emotional cars. So emotional design is a big thing for us. I design cars for Aston Martin and BMW, and I'm bringing that design into an affordable premium space. And I think the cars today needs to be a lot more exciting and emotional if you want people to buy them. And that's what Fisker is all about. We will have the coolest design that everybody wants to drive.